you here this evening. Thank you for showing up and thank you for being a part of the family. If there's anyone that is new, we just want to welcome you to our family. So we want to continue tonight. We are talking about the gifts of the Spirit. And we started looking at the word of wisdom. We have looked at wisdom as to what it is. And we are looking specifically now at the word of wisdom, that gift that is given to us, that empowers us. And one of the things we said, it impacts people and causes them to marvel. They look at you and it's, wow. Hear the words coming out of his mouth. Hear the words coming out of her mouth. We looked at the fact that the Queen of Sheba came to Solomon. She came to test him, actually, because she had heard about his wisdom. And when she came, she spoke to him, asked him all the questions. He was able to answer all the questions that she posed to him. We looked at Peter and John, who were uneducated, didn't go to school, didn't have a college degree or anything, and yet they were able to speak with wisdom that was given by the Spirit of God. And we also looked at Stephen, who was also able to speak with wisdom, and that wisdom comes from God. And we continue tonight, and what I want to start off by saying is that this gift, this word of wisdom that is given to us, one of the main things it is used for is problem solving. That's what wisdom is for, is to solve problems that would normally not be solved, that would be so complex, that would be so challenging. It is used. God empowers us by giving us a word of wisdom to solve problems. Let's look at Exodus chapter 18 from verse 13 to 23. We're going to look at 4 different situations tonight where the word of wisdom was used to solve a problem. Exodus chapter 18, verses 13 to 23.
Good night, family. I am reading from the King James Version. From verse 13, and it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, "What is this thing that you doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning until evening eve?" And Moses said unto his father-in-law, "Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws." And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, "The thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away, both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. But thou for the people to Godward. But thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure and all his people shall also go to their place in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So here we had a situation where Moses, the leader of this great people, remember it's 12 tribes, and it's about 3 million people that came out of Egypt. And Moses is there, and Moses is there. People are coming to him with their problems, and he is set up where he's there. And one by one, they would come to him, bring, like a court, bring their case, and then he would judge based on whatever the situation is. And his father-in-law said, but Moses, what you're doing doesn't make sense. And what was given to his father-in-law was a word of wisdom to give to Moses for this particular situation. He says, Moses, it doesn't make sense you sitting here holding, listening to people. I mean, they're going to wear you out. That's all you'll be doing. You would not be able to do anything else. You are here listening to these people problems whole day in, day out. That doesn't make sense, Moses. And his father-in-law spoke with a wisdom that came from God. His father-in-law told him, listen, Moses, why don't you delegate the responsibility of listening to these matters to other people? You have able people within your ranks. Why don't you choose people? Some of them will rule over thousands. In other words, thousands of people. They will be responsible for thousands of people. Some will be responsible for hundreds. Some will be responsible for 50s. Some will be responsible for 10. I will let them judge. Let the people go to them instead of coming to you. Let him go to them. If it is a great matter, if it is a matter that maybe life and death or property or something big, then they can come directly to you. But when you have these small matters, somebody come because the neighbor threw something in the yard. Why do you have to judge these simple things? And so Moses' father gave him a word of wisdom, or he operated in a word of wisdom. He said, Moses, if you delegate the responsibility, then you will not be wearing yourself out. And isn't that the way we work now? Isn't that the way businesses work? Isn't that the way the country is structured? Could you imagine the prime minister, everything, is going to the prime minister? No, he has ministers who are responsible for different areas, for security, for national security, for housing, for education, for different things, for health. And each one of them are supposed to be responsible in their area, and even under them, they have people who are delegated, the public servants, etc., etc. So the principle is delegation. Now, even with this word of wisdom, I want to tell you that there are some people who they still don't seem to want to take this word of wisdom. There are some leaders who want to do everything themselves. You see, because when it is all said and done, they want to think that they want to get all the kudos for themselves, all the praise for themselves. Well, I did this, I built this, I'm running this, I'm doing this thing. And that is not wise. You have able-bodied people. And I want to say this to ministers, to leaders of churches. You have people who are able, who God has blessed with wisdom. God has blessed with skill. God has blessed with talents and abilities and giftings. Allow them to function in their place. It is going to free you up. It is going to free you up. It's going to assist you in this ministry. We have First Lady and we have I have myself, but we have a bunch of people called elders who also share responsibility. We have ministers as well. And we don't hold back things from them. We don't want to get the glory. This doesn't belong to us. And we keep saying it all the time that this ministry belongs to God. And whoever, whoever I should say, that God has placed in this ministry is placed for a purpose. And if he has gifted them, it is for them to function in the ministry so that God himself would get the glory. So that's wisdom. That's exercising wisdom by giving people the freedom and the leeway to function in their purpose, to function the way in the gifting that God has given to them. And so in this instance, Moses' father-in-law exercised a word of wisdom that dealt with this particular situation. Remember, I told you, wisdom, the word of wisdom deals with particular situations. You can ask God for a word of wisdom for a situation. Let's look at another situation, 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 to 27. 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 to 27. And, you know, some of you who maybe would have come on late, I'm going to say late, not tonight, but lately, you might tell yourself, well, I know this story already, man. I know these things before. Well, in this ministry, one of the things that I always say to you is to listen with new ears. Listen as though you're hearing this thing for the first time. Let it impact you that way. Because God is so wise and so wonderful that one verse of scripture can minister to you over and over, different thing at a different time. And then God is speaking to all of us at where we are at as well. So don't tell yourself, well, I know that already. So, because what that will cause you to do is switch your mind off. And what God is trying to say to you, you may not be able to get if you think that way. So always listen with new ear. And we might come back to this again. And we might come back to this at another time, talking about something else. Always listen with new ear. So let's look at 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 to 27.
This section is entitled Solomon's Wise Judgment. Now 2 women were harlots, came to the king and stood before him. And one woman said, "O my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house, and I gave birth while she was in the house. Then it happened, the 3rd day after I had given birth, that this woman also gave birth, and we were together. No one was with us in the house except the 2 of us in the house. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side, while your maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I rose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was, dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed, he was not my son whom I had born." Then the other woman said, "No, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son." And the first woman said, "No, but the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son." Thus they spoke before the king. And the king said, "The one says, 'This is my son who lives, and your son is the dead one.' And the other says, 'No, but your son is the dead one, and my son is the living one.' Then the king said, 'Bring me a sword.' So they brought a sword before the king, and the king said, 'Divide the living child in 2, and give half to one and half to the other.' Then the woman whose son was living spoke to the king, for she yearned with compassion for her son. And she said, 'O my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill him.' But the other said, 'Let him be neither mine nor yours, but divide him.' So the king answered and said, 'Give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is the mother."
Thank you very much. So I know you know this story already, but here it is again, a word of wisdom brought by the king. Now, I've heard this story over and over, and I to tell you the truth, every time I hear it, I wonder. Now, we have this ministry is made up of mostly women, and I wonder, women, what would you do? Could you do something like that? Could you do something like that where your son died? I'm not talking about the end. I'm talking about going, saying, listen, you see this dead child is your child, and your child is mine. Could you do that? Could you actually claim somebody's child as your own because your child is dead? Is it possible? And women, you have to help me to understand, because I'm a man and I don't understand it. Is it possible that somebody wants a child so much that they would take somebody else's child and give that person your dead child, you will give the person your dead child. Can you fathom something like that? Because as I said, I don't understand it. I cannot understand how someone could do that. But this is in the scripture and it actually happened. And ladies, just somebody, just respond to me. Tell me. Is that something that is reasonable to accept, that somebody could do something that, could you do something like that? Talk to me a little bit, ladies. You all haven't been responding to me much lately. Talk to me. Ladies, we have mostly ladies in this chat. Joshua, you'll tell me.
Yes, Dr. Richard. So, I have a couple comments. All saying no, they can't, they would never. And we have 3 hands up. We have Sister Susan, Sister Janet Thomas, and Sister Bernadette in that order.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, good night.
Hi.
I would not do that, but it doesn't dispute the fact that it have people who would do that, because I know of someone that thief a child from the hospital. I don't know how she did it, right? But I knew of that. She thief a child because she so wanted a child that she thief the woman child and come and telling my family that that is her child, you know? So it's then months after we get to realize that she really didn't make the child, and that's a police gonna lock she up. And she carry back the child and put the child somewhere that they find the child. But she did that. So people could do that, but I would not.
But let me just ask you this. I know we have others to come, but let me just ask this question. As a woman, wouldn't you understand the grief that you're causing the other person? Wouldn't you
Yes,
understand that as a mother?
I would, because and as she know that, and then you would know the child is not yours. You would know your child. You would know your child, and then to go and take somebody else's child. No. Go tell somebody your child dead, and you know this is your child. I can't do it. But
Okay.
it have people out there. It have sick people out there would do that. I said sick people. I call them.
Thank you. Next person.
Dr. Richards, the same thing that Sister Susan said. I knew somebody who did that. You know, the person was yearning for a child, and she went to the hospital and she stole somebody's child because I think she didn't have children. But you know, she couldn't wait on the Lord. But sometime after she got pregnant, how many times?
Okay, somebody's mic is open. Yeah.
Yes, she went on the Lord because she got pregnant a few times after and had children. So it happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We have one more person.
Hi, good night, everyone. So I agree with Sister Susan in relation to, because I work at the hospital, I was privy to seeing that. And with my first pregnancy, I actually told Tamala, listen, at that time he was able to see. I told him, listen, because I was going for a C-section, and when they presented the baby to him, I before I go to theater, I told him make sure and look for specific marker on that baby. So to know that, hey, this is your child. So yes, people do that.
Wow. You know,
Yeah.
I can't thank you. You know, I really can't imagine that, you know. I can't imagine. As a mother, you would know what the real mother, the pain that woman would go through. I don't understand it. I really don't. Anyone else, Joshua?
Okay, we have Elder Sherry and First Lady, but before them, we have a couple of comments. One says, no, the innate maternal connection would never be the same. Another says, I cannot do that. Another says, it is not reasonable at all, but in some situations it will be done. Another says, I won't love that child the same. The child will just be a replacement. Another said, they are in a mental state. Another says, yes, the mother of the child will be grieving, but the state of mind of some people, that mother's grief will not bother them. So we
Wow.
have Elder Sherry and then First Lady.
Wow. Ella Sherry.
Good evening, everyone. Well, definitely I would not be able to do that. But as this topic is going on, I just remembered there was a couple of years ago right here in Trinidad and Tobago where there was a mix-up with babies. And one parent ended up in, I think they were from Tobago. Somehow they had the child here. And the other one was here. And as the child was growing, the children were growing, there was some concerns with the family in Tobago, and then they realized that there was a mix-up, and they had to switch back babies. And well, one was elated because they were probably recognizing something was wrong, but the one from Tobago, the mother said that she had already bonded with the child. So it was a difficult thing for her to even accept that this wasn't her child and that she had to now start that all over again with another baby, which is actually hers. But because of the bond she would have formed from birth and this child nursing on her and everything, it was even difficult, you know, so I could just imagine. Yeah.
Wow. You know, before First Lady, how could that, how do you deal with that after you've bonded with a child? Ladies, you know, ladies in this ministry, what would happen if tomorrow you found out that this child you raised for all these years isn't your child? How would you deal with that? We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's hear First Lady. First Lady.
Dr. Richards, you know, I was going to talk about the same thing that Elder Sherry spoke about. You know, it's thank God that we as women probably wouldn't do that. But the people who do those things, Doc, they are people who are desperate for a child. Right? And it's no excuse because, you know, I've seen that, and you know that I love to look at true stories, and it's something that people do. Women, and because they're in a mental state, and even in some of the true stories, Doc, the spouse encouraged the nonsense too. You find the husband helping them out as well, because, you know, men always trying to please women, and if they have that weakness and not taking that, they just want to see her happy because they so love her, you know. But I think when people desperately want something that they cannot have, and the people around them are not there to encourage them, that's why Dr. Richards' support is important. And as we were speaking earlier today, even people who have children and go through postpartum depression, that support system, Dr. Richards, is key. And you know, so yeah, so I mean, it's something that I cannot see myself doing it. And again, and those who have said they cannot, it's because of the way you were brought up to think, and the people, your support system growing up. You know, you may say so, but sometimes people who have that support system, is the least expected person you find doing those things, you know, that is that mental state. And I believe at the time it takes place, if you don't have that support around you, I can see someone doing something unthinkable like that. Even with you know, and it brought to mind Judah, Dr. Richards, when the lady was saying, you know, she was teasing us about me and her having the only two people in the maternity ward, you know, with being pregnant, you know. You're looking confused. But you know what I'm saying now? I'm saying, well, you know, Judah, yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's that support system.
And
Sister Dolores, hand it up, Dr. Richards.
All right, but before we go to Sister Dolores, I want to ask this question. So what do you do if after raising that child, you found out that your child was switched, or they made a mistake, and let's say you, First Lady, you find out that, hey, Judah really isn't really my child. It's, you know, it's the other lady child, and the other lady has my child. What do you do after all these years? Do you just, I know it might not be a simple answer for this. But just think about it a minute. What do you do after? And I know we kind of going veering a little bit off the topic, but what do you do after you've bonded and you've raised and you've spent your and not just finances, but time and effort and everything and tears, and you've sown all that into this child to find out that this child isn't yours? How does one deal with that? How
Dr.
does
Richards, to answer you,
Mhm.
I feel I might want to fight to keep that child, because you remember you're bonding with that baby, you're nursing that baby, you're watching that baby cool, you're playing with that baby, passing your hands over the eyebrow, every little thing, and to know, it depends on how fast. Now, if you go home and they tell you within a week, but if they come after 6 months and tell me that I want my child, I want our child, and I feel I would want to keep that other child, it would be hard to give up the child. Then I should put it that way, because it's
But
not
but you
it's not
but
it's not
remember,
mine, because of our exchange.
right?
But
But
I would definitely.
remember as well, your child born from your body is also out there. All right. So how would you feel about that?
No, that's what I'm
And
saying. I would want my child. They have
so
to
you
give
want
me back my child, and it would be hard for me to give up the other child.
so you want both.
If I could have the both, I would.
And
Dr.
the other
Richards, you may
person
not
might be
understand, eh? You may not understand as a man, but I can tell you something as a woman who have had 3 children. When you start nursing that child, sleeping, watching that child sleeping, you're bathing that child, you're doing everything for that child, it's hard. There's a bond, And remember, you're bonding with that child, thinking it's yours. So when you're hearing it's not yours, I mean, hats off to any woman who could come and say, well, I'll just give back the child. And that's what I'm saying. If it's a week it happened, you might say, but it might be kind of okay. But 6 months down the road, you come in to tell me that I would want to keep the 2. Even
Yeah,
though I
but
know I can't, but I want my child. I'm not going to leave them with my child. If that's my child, I want my child. But it would be
you have
difficult to give up that other baby.
their child to edit. And the other people
We have
who's
2 hands of Dr. Richards. Yeah, you
oh,
have the hand of Sister Dolores and Elder Sheldon.
okay, a man perspective. Let's see. Well, Sister Dolores.
Good night, everyone. I'm listening because it's bringing back memories to me working in the hospital and also where they delivering the babies. I I can't understand how babies get mixed up because there is a procedure in which we work by. You have a tag that you write up for all mothers who in labor online on that bed, right? The name of the mother, the sex, and all that. You have that tag, everything lined up, the baby clothes, everything. And you have people like me who was a nursing assistant. My responsibility was to tag this child as this child born. The child is not to leave by the mother until that baby is tagged. So I believe these things happen because of negligence. Probably is a lot of deliveries and people get flustered and people do. But if you really go by what you're supposed to do, there will be no errors. So
All
we
right.
had to make sure that each child is tagged as they come from the mother. Those children are tagged. The tag is shown to the mother on the foot. The mother agreed. This is regardless of how much pain you might be. The only how that will happen is if the mother had a C-section in the theater. But once it's a normal delivery, the mother is conscious. That tag of that baby is shown to the mother. Here is your baby. This is the sex of your baby, and we take the baby away. So, mix up is negligence on behalf of the person who is dealing with the babies, I believe.
Or deliberate.
Or yes, if they coincide with somebody else to switch people babies, which is they have to be mental too. Because I believe in nurse probably is mental too, who will be doing
We'll
that.
do
That
something
is
like
not
that.
normal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Elder Sheldon, I think.
Good night, family. Dr. Richards, I'm listening to everyone, and while I'm in agreement with everyone, it's not only the mother that has a bond with the child.
Mm-hmm.
The father develops a bond with the child also,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I mean to say, a lot of times we downplay, you know, that bond that the father have with the child, especially, right, where girl children are concerned,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not saying that there's not a bond with boy children, but fathers have a bond with their children, right? So for something like that to happen, it would affect the father just as much as it would affect the mother, right? But a question, I am listening to this, and a question that I am asking here now, because I think the father, and a lot of times, you know, men, you know, women feel that, you know, we don't hurt, we don't go through pain, we don't suffer emotional trauma like they do, right? Just that sometimes we don't talk, right? But I'm thinking about something here, and any one of the ladies could answer me this question. I understand what is being said here, but what about another scenario now when a woman would allow a man to think that this child is his child all the time, and he raised this child from birth, and then when this child grows up, only to find out that this child is not his child, right? I think that mother, I think she should be jailed. This is just my opinion, right? I think that somebody that does that should be jailed, right? Because the man would have put out all of his time, his finances, his emotions, everything into this child. And this woman, not only knowing, you know that this is not the father of this child. And you have this man thinking all these years that this is the father, you're the father of this child. And it's only because I've seen so many situations, right? Real life situations where men only get to find out that they are not the biological father of their children only when a medical issue come up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is when the fathers, because a mother does always know, right? A mother does always know, right? Because a mother does know what child is hers. A father, right, is when the wife comes, well, this is your child, right? That is when the father would know, well, okay, this is your child. But I am asking myself, how could a woman do that to a man knowing full well that this is not the father of the child? And then not only that too, right? Because I have seen situations where women would have had multiple children with other men, and this man minding these children, thinking that those children are his. And how could a woman do that to a man, right? How could she do that to a man? And then, because I'm listening to this, and it's as though they have no regards for the feelings of men, because they tell themselves that, you know, hey, you know, we could do them what they want. And then when men operate in a particular way in society, they ask themselves why, right?
Yeah.
You know, but women have to understand that you all have to be truthful too. From the get-go, you all have to be truthful, right? And where these things are concerned, and I am really passionate about this, because I find too many times this situation is happening with men, right? Where you have a lot of women out there knowing full well the man that is minding their children is not the biological father of the child, and the women and them are going along with it, right? Because why? The man might be financially secure, and all of these things. So they're allowing the man to go along with it. But you know, if it was reverse, they would lock up the man and show with the jail. Right? They would not show with the key, no, they would show with the jail. Right? So
yes,
I would really like a woman to enlighten me, any lady to enlighten me on what does be going through a woman's mind to be doing something like that.
All right. Okay, so before we continue, I just want to address one thing that you said. The first thing that you were talking about, that they don't think that men are emotional and that we bond with children. And that is evidenced by the fact that we are still fighting in this country for men to get paternity leave, significant paternity leave, because most companies, a lot of companies have adopted paternity leave, but men get, 3 days, basically. It might have changed since I was working, but I know, I had 3 days paternity leave, and a number of other companies I know would have done that 3 days while the woman gets 3 months. And that says that the thinking is that the man is not needed. The man is not needed to raise that child. The man is not needed to bond with that child. Only the woman, maybe because the man is not breastfeeding. I don't know what the thought process is. So, yeah, so that is one thing that we have to deal with. And hopefully, from a legal perspective, that has to be dealt with so that men could be more involved in the lives of the infant. Okay, so let's move on. Let's continue.
Before we have 3 hands up, right?
Oh, that's what I mean. Who's the next person?
Yeah. So the 3 hands up we have is Sister Judy, Elder Sherry, and Minister Jiva in that order. But Dr. Richards, I want to ask Elder Sheldon a question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Can I do that? Elder Sheldon, you said something there just now, and my question to you is this. Are you really saying as a man that men are not aware that the child is not their own? I really want to know, because to me, sometimes I say, well, and this is my thought, and it's a real question, Elder Sheldon, for you to answer, because my thought is this, Dr. Richards, as well. I find it hard to believe that a man doesn't really know that the child is not his own. I feel that they know, but is it that and this is why I'm asking clarification for, because I could be very foolishly wrong, but yes.
With a newborn, right? Unless that child, and I mean to say, there are some children, like the other day, I saw my nephew, and when I saw him, I told my brother, you can't tell me they're your child. You make you, right? Right. So there are the instances when they could watch a child and say, yes, that is yours, right? But a lot of times, right? A man, the features of a child, because take for instance, Pastor Nicole, my son, when my son was born, my son had absolutely no resemblance of me, absolutely none. My daughter, however, right? She had everything for me, but my son had absolutely nothing for me. It's only when my son started to grow, then I started to see some traits of me, because he took everything from his mother. Right? And then not only that, my son, right, took the total complexion of his mother. My daughter took my complexion. Right? So a lot of times, sometimes, as a man, there are times, yes, you will know. But then there are times that you have to wait. Now, a lot of times you would hear the old grandparents, because a lot of times the grandmothers and the grandfathers, they just pick up on that fast. Very quick. The grandparents pick up on it very, very quick. Right? But a lot of times the men don't pick up on it. Yes, they will pick up on some things, right? But not all the times will they pick up on it like how a woman will know, because a woman will know, yes, this is my child. right? A man will not always pick
Agreed.
up until the child starts to grow. The child will, then the husband will pick up and say, well, yes. Because, and hence the reason why, that is why sometimes you find when you have these people going through these paternity tests on all these other things, it's because sometimes the child have absolutely nothing. So they have to go down to the DNA now to prove that the child really is the man's child. Right? But the woman would know, yes, that is her child, because she knows she delivered the child.
Yeah.
Right? But the man may not always know. The man would have to wait until the child starts to grow, unless they do like a DNA test or a paternity test, right? Then the man will understand that. But from the get-go, the man, just by watching the child, sometimes all the time, it doesn't happen so for the man.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Elder Sheldon. So let's the next person.
Okay, Dr. Richards, we have Sister Judy.
Okay, sorry.
We have Sister Judy, Elder Sherry, Minister Jiva, and Sister Susan in that order.
Sister Judy? All right. Well, the next person, for time's sake, Elder Sherry.
Good evening again.
Oh, hello. Oh, yeah, no, got you. Hello? Sorry, I now got you. You hear me?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah. What I was saying about that situation, the ideal thing for me, that the children will have both two mothers. I figured it would be so nice to kind of live as a family. You might be together, but you could spend, time, with each other, and you be friends instead of making enemies and separating. You get back your child, you take back your child, but still have a sort of bonding together. So to be like two families, I find that is the best solution to that situation, right? Yeah. And also, I want to say this. My son had a friend, right? He wasn't married to the lady, and she had other children before or something like that. She's a kind, but he had this child with her. She was living with her for a while, and his mother saw the child and said, "Yeah, that is your child," and it's so sure it's his child and all that. And somehow, I don't know, somebody told him, "Well, why don't you take a put them?" I don't know which person to him. Take a paternity test, and he said, "No, no, no, no." He and the child bonding together. It comes here and one mash up, break up, and she said, "That is not your child." And that man was so hurt, he could not believe it. And eventually they had to go to court and had a paternity test, and it was not his child. And the child so loved the man. Yes, it's so loved the man. So they said when he get big, he will just leave, but he would leave that to other father, because he had other siblings with the father. The mother had other children with that man, right? And so he had other siblings there, where this man only had his child. So it was a sad situation that whatever they could real hard. But these things do happen. But to me, if you could share, don't be enemies and say, I will, but accept your child and still have that relationship so they can meet, and, like auntie or something, and whatever. So I think that's the best thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Next person.
Good evening. So, as that subject that Brother Sheldon raised was almost in my mind as well, how men feel when they find out that a child is not theirs after raising that child for so long. That could be devastating. And there are situations, I've known of a friend who the child was born, and that father, that was his favorite child. He loved that child all, and then only to find out when they broke up that the child wasn't his. But other people would have been saying things and he didn't heed it because he just loved that child. And it was very devastating. I also wanted to make a point when Dr. Richards was speaking of, the fact of paternity leave and all of that. Even the court doesn't really recognize a father, doesn't matter what a woman does. When they go to the court, and, the court always seem to favor that woman. And I remember working with a guy, and he had 2 children with a woman. Well, it was his wife, his ex-wife. And she was bleeding him and keep going back to the court for money. The son finished school and had no desire to go back to school, and she made him sign up in a school because he would get money. It will continue past 18. And the boy wasn't even going, and he was getting so mad because he was, he kept saying that the judge, like, they don't even want to hear him, the magistrate, So men really have a hard time with their children, even to get that support. And the Single Fathers Association, they're crying out all the time for that same reason.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that is so true. I've had many many men I've spoken to concerning that, and the cry that they're crying, and sometimes literally crying too, because of the court system, which seems to favor women over men. They don't seem to think that men would bond with children as well as women. But anyway, let's continue. And before we continue, let me just say, this is going to take us over the time. So I'm trusting that everyone is okay with that. If it is that you need to leave at 9:30, please feel free to do so, but I don't want to stop this conversation as it is right now. Okay, next person.
We have Minister Jiva and Sister Susan. That's the last two hands.
Okay. Mr. Jiva, can you unmute?
She is unmuted, Dr. Richards. That's the song you're getting from her.
Okay. Something is happening.
Minister Jiva? Hello? Okay, Sister Susan, for time's sake, you can go.
Yeah.
Good night, family.
Hi.
If I figure out I was mixed up in the hospital, I would have stayed with my mommy because I was with her my whole life and I don't know the next one.
And that makes sense. And that makes sense. Thank you so much. And that makes sense. So the question is, at what point? Because First Lady talk about, okay, if it's a week or so, that is one thing. But if it's after that, if you're bonded with the child, and then somebody said, well, the child can have two parents, but that isn't always possible. It isn't always possible. And I have seen, these Lifetime movies with these things. My wife likes to look at a lot of true stories. And I have seen stories like that. And I remember in one instance where one of the children got sick. And because the child was sick, that is what, caused the whole thing to unravel in terms of them knowing that, I don't remember if they did a paternity test or how it led to it, but because one of the children became sick, that is what precipitated the entire thing. And so your child is healthy, the child that you're raising is healthy, your child, who the other person is raising, is sick, and then they find out, or maybe they knew all the time, and now they want to come back. They want to do the exchange now because they want you to have the child that is sick and take the responsibility of taking care of the sick child, and they want back their child. What do you do in a case like that? How do you resolve these things? At what age? And the next question I would want to ask is this. If you find out that this child isn't yours, do you tell the child? Do you say, listen, I just found out, even though I've raised you all these years, I love you, but I'm not your father, I'm not your mother. What do you do in an instant like that? Do you bring the child into that in terms of letting them have the knowledge that they're not related to you biologically? Or do you leave it as is and continue because you don't want to destroy a happy home? What do you do in situations like that? And these are real life things, I'm sure, happening. And even as Elder Sheldon, come back with Elder Sheldon now, if after you have raised your child and loved your child, whether it's a boy or a girl, and then you find out, what do? You find out this, this is not really my child, This woman deceives me. What do you do in an instant like that? Do you say, well, look, You're not my son, you're not my daughter. I am no longer responsible for you. Do you continue taking care of the child? What do you do? These are some of the questions that we have to answer. These are some of the things that it would be nice to get your opinion on. I'm seeing the time, so we may have to continue this next week. But these are some real life things that are happening.
Good night.
Who is this?
Hello.
Hello.
Sister Susan, my
Hello? Oh, Sister Susan didn't talk. I thought the person was talking on Sister Susan thing. Go ahead, Sister Susan. Hello, go ahead. Okay, what's happening, Sister Susan? Are you
Sister
there?
Susan, you're muted, we're not hearing you. Check your mic.
Right. I now get back at the thing, press it. Okay. Listening to Brother Sheldon, it come to me sitting here and I read, I thinking that some men know when their wife is pregnant because they get sick for the whole 9 months. All you know that. And as Pastor said, they don't get maternity leave. You all hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Right? So I know if people get sick for the whole day, the wife good, and the man sick for the whole 9 months, vomiting and all kind of thing. So sometimes some men know, they're sure that their child is theirs. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, well, I've heard that over the years, and I don't know if that is just a superstition or if it's a reality. I don't know. But they say some men do get sick when the wife gets.
That is true because I know of people, my sister and a neighbor of mine, that happened to them. Whole 9 months the man sick.
I'm not going to dispute it because I can't refute it. I can't say no, it's not true. All right, I don't understand how that could happen, but as I said, I can't refute it. If it's happened to people, it has happened to people. But again, the question is to be asked, what do you do? What do you do? And some of you didn't really answer Sheldon's question because he was asking, how could a woman do that? How could you raise a child, allow this man, your husband, to support this child all the child's life and not say to him, listen, this is not really your child enough? Is it out of fear?
Dr. Richards, no, because she loved the man. She loved that man so much, she don't want to lose Ella Sheldon. Because she loves the man so much, she doesn't want to lose him because she knows if she tells that man that child ain't his, he's going to leave. So to keep him, that's right. So to keep,
yes. I want to jump in here and I want to strongly disagree with you. And I don't ever do that, but I want to strongly disagree with you because at the end of the day, that is the highest form of deception, right? And how I am looking at that, you cannot tell me that you love me and you are deceiving me like that, right? Knowing full well that this is not my child, knowing that you would have gone out and done that to me, right? Because remember, right, a lot of times women do not, when a woman is going to cheat on a man, a woman don't cheat, a man might cheat physically, a woman does form an emotional bond first before it develops into a physical bond, right? So saying that, you love me and you don't want to lose me, that is the, I ain't buying that.
That's fear. That's not buying that. Fear. You're afraid of losing the man.
Right, so you're afraid of losing the man, right? No, because how I looking at it, that is the highest form of deception. Because what you have to understand, with men, right, and men appreciate respect more than sex, and a lot of women don't understand this, right? And when you do that to a man, that is the highest form of disrespect that you could show a man. When you could do that to a man, and then on top of it now, you are deceiving me, right? And then want to tell me now that you love me and you're afraid of losing me? Well, it's automatic you lose me already. You're definitely going to lose me. From the time you come forward and you tell me, you lose. At least I don't know about other people. But with me, I gone.
Thank you, Elisha.
Elisha, let me tell you, I'm telling you this because I know someone, she said she made a mistake, and in the mistake she made, she happened to get pregnant for this other person, and she said that she loved the man too much. She cannot do that if he only finds out, right, that she's pregnant for him. That's where the problem is, because she had sex with both. So what happened is that she and the fella had a little falling out. And I think what she was saying is, on a rebound, she was in an emotional state, not thinking clearly, and she just slept with somebody once. And the same day she slept with that man, the same day she slept with that person, the fellow who she was in love with called her and say, you know what, we had to try to make this work because he loved her. And they had sex later on that day again. And she found out that she was pregnant. And she wasn't even too sure who it was for. And she wanted it to be the man that she made back up with, Elder Sheldon. And she believed that, but when the child was born, she went and did a paternity test. And he didn't know, but she knew. And she said she couldn't tell him anything. And she never told him anything because she said she loved him.
Kudos. Why? Well, she had to say thank God it worked out for her. Thank God it worked out for her. Right? But in a situation like that, Pastor Nicole, if God forbid and something had happened to that child and she had to come out and inform him that here what's going on, when we were on a break, this is what happened, what do you think the outcome would have been?
But Ella Sharon, let's be real. Ella Sharon, if something like that happened as a man, and you want to make up and the girl says to you, well, here's what's going on. Let's just say your wife or something, right? Because we don't want to encourage them, because people might hear what we're not saying. So something like that happens, and then she comes and she tells you that. You wouldn't make up with her? You might say, well, oh, really? So we just break up now, and well, this puts a different spin. Not all men willing to forgive. And you know why? What I found out is that men see sex as a dominating thing. And because they know that a woman, as you rightfully says, have to connect with a man before she allows that man into her space, then your mind going to go into that, and you would say, this girl let this man into my territory. And that is why I'm saying some women probably keep these things and they don't say anything, because instead of trying to make it, a woman will quicker forgive a man in Elder Sheldon. She will quicker say, I'm all right, and why you do this to me? And she will crying, and make him promise he won't do it again. But a man now is like, what, you messing with my heifer? And he would say, I can't, nah, I can't. What are you trying to do me? That's what all the men don't like to forgive. You see, let me not say it like that. You see something with men, when another man go with a woman that you love, oil does get in a different place. Not that oil don't forgive you, but it takes a longer time. Let's get real. There's a real situation here.
And yes, I agree with you. I agree with you, because at the end of the day, what it is you're talking about here is our egos, right? Right? And that is what you're basically damaging our egos. And as men, right, that is what we look at. Because yes, a man, where his wife is concerned, he looks at his wife as, here what's going on. This is holy ground. This is sacred. You don't interfere with my wife at all. No other man is allowed to touch my wife. No other man is allowed to touch my wife. Right? And once you see a woman willingly go out and do that, the man feels totally disrespected. Totally disrespected. Once the woman went out willingly, even if they would have had some sort of a misunderstanding or argument or something, and the woman willingly went out and did that, and even if it was just for a fling, right? That is how the man is going to look at it, right? And yeah, right? But as I said, I mean to say, other people, for other people, it might be different, but I'm just telling you for me, right? The type of person that I know that I am, right? I don't play, right? I always say, once you go out, stay out. It's no coming back.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's the thing, and that may be what would put in the mind of the woman. I can't tell him because, you know, once he knows, and that's the end of it. What I would do,
Dr. Richards.
Yeah, let me just say this. What I would do in terms of, you know, maybe counseling couples with that, maybe it may not be a good idea, depending on the couple. If she comes to me and says, look, this is what happened, I'm pregnant, do I tell my husband? It's not an automatic yes or no. You look at the situation, and you look at the people, and you see what the situation is. What I'm saying, though, is somewhere along the line, whether it's at the beginning, somewhere in the middle, he has to know. He has to know this is not my child. And you can't live in a lie. You can't live a lie. You cannot keep this situation because you're afraid of losing him, or as you said, you love him too much. Somewhere along the line, you have to get to the place where you can face this man and say, listen, this is what has happened. This child is not yours. And maybe you may not say it like that, but you have to get to that place. You cannot live knowing that you have a secret in this relationship that your husband, your spouse doesn't know. That cannot work. All right, so this is what I'm saying. So it may not be automatic, okay, I'm pregnant, so let me come and tell you what happened. I did a DNA test. No, maybe that may not be, maybe you need to work to get to that place where you can make that revelation, but it has to be done. Okay?
Dr. Richards, just now I have to go back on Elder Sheldon. You said something there. We have two hands up, Dolores and Minister Jiva. But Elder Sheldon, you see, this is, Dr. Richards, we have to probably do this topic another time. And this is what I'm struggling with. A woman will forgive a man. You heard what Elder Sheldon just said? A woman will forgive that man, husband, right? And yes, it has to be all your ego, But if that person really sorry, Elder Sheldon, she really sorry, it was a mistake. Satan went into her. She gave in to that temptation, Elder Sheldon, and she's very repentant. Very repentant. And you're seeing her in a way that you've never seen. And you can see that she's really sorry. She really sorry, Elder Sheldon. You can't. So, and that's the thing. And I don't know. I wonder if any mind of men, whenever you are with that person, is it that you're going to be thinking that the other? I'm struggling to understand that, Elder Sheldon.
Exactly. Exactly. Because from the time, and I mean this, I don't want to take over the kingdom study, but.
No, you go ahead. We're doing something different.
Go right ahead.
From the time, at least, let me talk for men. Let me talk for me. Personally, I'm talking for me. Right? I am the type of person that anytime I touch you, I am going to be, in my mind, that is going to come back to me. And I don't want, right, to be holding you, because if I'm saying that I am forgiving you, I am forgiving you. But remember, forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, right? So it's better I forgive you and allow you to go and release both of us, right? As opposed to I am staying there, right? And saying I am forgiving you, but in my heart, right, I am not trusting you. It makes no sense, because that is what's going to happen. I am not going to be trusting you, right? And it's going to take, and even where the woman is concerned, right? Even if let's say the man goes out and do it, and the woman forgives the man has to understand that here what's going on. That even though his wife forgives him, is not to say that, automatically, and as men sometimes, we would do our foolishness and expect the woman to forgive us automatically and just come back in just like that. It doesn't work like that. So even if the woman decides that here what's going on, I want out of this, you have to respect it. You have to respect her decision. If it is she takes you back, right? If she takes you back, then you have to understand now it is a process that you're going to have to go through to regain her trust, right? And if, right? And if she does decide to do that now, no matter how long that process takes, you have to be willing to ride that process, no matter how long it is. If it is you decide as the man that you want to stay with the woman, right? But I'm just telling you, for me, right? I cannot speak for everyone else, right? I'm just speaking for me because everybody else, all men might deal with it differently. Another man might turn and say, well, yes, I will make back with her, right? But I'm just telling you, for me, you know, so that's just my take.
Yeah, understood. Thank you, Elder Sheldon. Let's get the two hands that are up.
Dr. Richards, yeah, before they go, right, I know you're looking at the time. It reminds me of something that you said, Doc. And you know, I'm listening to Elder Sheldon and it brought me back. And family, this is what Dr. Richards said one time we were talking, and he said to me that when a woman, right, allows a man into her space like that, in an intimate space, he said that that woman would have already allowed that man to get into her emotions. So for a woman to have sex with someone, Doc says she make up her mind that she wants to do it. So it's not that you know, like some men, well, men get turned on by what they see. And Doc, I hope I'm explaining it right. And he said, you know, so a man will have sex with a woman because you're looking nice, she kind of thing. And he said, but a woman will not have sex with a man until she realizes he has to really do something. The conversation, tap into her constantly, and then she gives in. So when a woman has sex with a man because she wanted and she willingly gave of herself. And then he further explained, I don't know if you remember this, Dr. Richards, we had now gotten married, early in our marriage. And he said, when a man is intimate like that with a woman, he's in control. He dominates her. And she's in that place of weakness, so she allows him to do whatever he wants to do. So that now when you hear that your wife, right, slept with someone else, and I guess it's the same thing that Elder Sheldon is saying, then you know this woman allowed this man into her space. This is not something that just happened just like that. Even if she says, Dr. Richard said, even if she said it just happened, he said, but what Dr. Richard was telling me is that it was a build-up to something that was going on all the time. And because it was going on all the time, the moment presented itself and the woman took it. So he said, as for a man now, is that you allow this man to take dominance over you. And he said, as a woman, you just let them do what they want to do. Remember, we all know, I don't have to tell you what sex is. So you allow that man to do that. And then Dr. Richard said to me, and then he sees you in that moment of weakness. Your eyes going back behind your head. He knows how you express yourself sexually. So in his mind now, you did that. You express yourself like that to another man. And that's why you tend to find they do this nonsense and want to kill. And this kind of, but I like the way Elder Sheldon, how you put it. I like that. I will run with that. Where, you know, it's holy. You can't come there into that space. And I guess that is why, as you said, this is ego. But I'm listening, and Dr. Richards, you remember that conversation, it all came back. So that's why for men, it's hard, because you make this man weaken you like that and give of yourself. You just give yourself over to that man, and he allowed him to dominate you in that space, my God. Well, Dr. Richards, the two hands.
Yeah, but let me just say, and the converse is you, and you answered your own question there, Pastor Nicole, why it's easier for a woman to forgive a man, because a man sometimes is just physical. This thing just make him feel good, and he did that without even any emotional connection to the woman. So that's why it's easier for a woman to forgive a man, because she knows it is not as deep as what the woman experienced, as to what she would have experienced if she were in that position. So it's easier for a woman to forgive a man, but because she knows that, hey, most of the time, it's mainly just a physical thing. He just felt good. It just made him feel good. but he didn't build any emotional attachment to this woman. And so it's easier for her to forgive him than, as you just explained, why it's difficult for a man to forgive a woman, because all of that goes through his mind. But let's hear the other two hands. Oh, not hear the hands, but the people who put their
Yes, we
hands.
have, sure, we have, Joshua, we have Sister Dolores and Minister Jiva. Joshua, I'm doing.
Ah, yes, good night again. This is very much plenty. I believe some women do it deliberately. They know that the children is not the man own, and they make them feel that that is theirs, because I've experienced that already. You know, I remember patients coming and telling me, you see an old man coming with a gray hair. He's not the father, you know. So I believe some people wicked too. They just do it out of bare wickedness or what they could get. So it really, really happens, and some of the men not aware, and they just accept it. Some men just accept it. The brilliant ones may dig deep and search, but the majority of men, I believe, and some of these women with these men long, and these men cannot have children. They cannot have children, but they have other partners and they get pregnant. So they give the man who can't have children this child. And, the men accept these children and they just go along with it, minding these children for years. And some people die and they never know that the children wasn't theirs. So we have a lot of that happening right now in our little country, and we see a lot of things happening and we don't know why, but all these is things that comes up in homes and argument and different things. But yeah, women do give men children, and the men do really going deep, dig deep. They just accept it and they run with it. So a lot of people minding children who is not theirs right now, I'm sure.
And the thing is, I think some men don't even want to know. Eh? Some men, certain men, they don't want to know. Maybe they might even suspect that this is not my child, this is not my child, but they don't want to know, again, maybe because they want to be with the woman, or for whatever reason. It makes them look like a man. Listen, for me to have children, that makes me look like a man. If I'm with a woman and we don't have any children, something wrong with that. So there are instances where, it's happening. Men, they just ain't care to find out. Minister Jiva, and then this is the last person.
Hi, good night, family. I just come to share. First lady said is sometimes, the woman loves the man so much. But from watching like paternity court and stuff, it's not always about love. Sometimes I hear the woman say, well, I hope it's this one only because he have more financially, or because he's just a better person. So sometimes these women, they end up in this situation and they hoping for this person to be the father because of financial status, or because that person just seems to have a better personality, or so forth, And also what I'm learning from this is we as a woman, we need to keep ourselves solely for one man and wait until we are married and stuff, then to have children.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Minister Jiva. So that will do it for tonight. I know this topic could go on and on. And discussion is healthy. We don't always have to agree, but there's a saying, I never learned anything from anybody who always agreed with me. So if we want to learn, healthy disagreement is important, is essential, to grow and to learn. So thank you so much for your comments, everybody. We're going to continue on Tuesday, God's willing, our next Kingdom Studies on Tuesday. This is the end of it for the week. I know Joshua will probably want to remind you, but as I'm remembering now, don't forget tomorrow night, ladies, you meet tomorrow at 7:30. And if there are any other announcement, I'm sure Joshua will make it. So let me just hand you over to Joshua and say, folks, have a wonderful weekend, family. Have a great and super weekend. And God richly, richly bless.